Happy Saturday, everyone. Welcome to, I don't know where we are. I really don't know exactly where we are. I'll show you. We're at a gas station here along La Ruta Una, Route 1. And I am on a trip from Asunción out to Paraguay, which is like a small kind of mountain town about 2 hours from Asunción. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to try to get some content there. Might just throw some of it into this video. If not, I might make like a little vlog out of it as well. I definitely think I'm going to do like a proper recording, like out in the forest or something like that out there. But what driving so much, hint, hint to one of the topics we're going to talk about, made me think about was life back in America. And what I want to do in this video is do some apples to apples comparison of life in the USA specifically and life here in Paraguay. So essentially USA versus Paraguay, but for lifestyle, right? For lifestyle for people like us who are maybe are familiar with that place and want to move to a place here like Paraguay. I want to talk about ways that it's similar and ways that you might not think, because you might think, oh my God, there's probably worlds different. Like there's probably nothing similar, but there actually are a lot of similarities. And of course, some of the obvious differences and some of the differences that you might not have been aware of. So check me out here. This is my rental car. Rented a car here for the trip. Little Chevrolet Onyx. I like it. Nice little car. I rented it from Localiza. It's a rental agency here. I've used it twice now, and so far the experience has been great. So I recommend Localiza if you guys want to rent a car here in Paraguay. $71 for 2 days, 48 hours, so about $36 a day. Not too bad. And what I'm going to try to do is prop it up here because I have to get going. I'm going to try to prop it up here somehow, like make the camera ride shotgun and then record myself while I'm driving. But if I can't find a way to successfully do it and make the camera stable, then you guys are just going to see me cut to Paraguay, to my destination, and you're going to miss out on this fun driving part. So let's find out right now, moment of truth. Will I figure out how to set the camera up in the car? Let's see. All right, guys, I think we got it. This isn't final yet, but I've got it set up here on the tripod, kind of riding shotgun with me. It's going to be super jittery, but whatever. And I'm recording on my old iPhone, so sorry if the quality is a little bit lower. Pour yourself a tereré for this video. Check me out. I've got my Paraguay themed termo. You'll probably think, wow, that's super gringo and touristy. Yeah, it is. I'll get like a more personalized one at some point. But I had a guy, I'm trying to put in a clip. I had a guy who make me some yuyos. So quick tereré tip. In order to have a really good tereré, you got to have a good hierba, which is what goes here inside of la wampa. This is la bombilla, the straw. Bombilla, wampa, yerba, right? But you also got to put stuff in the water. So you put the ice water and then you put like herbs in it, right? They're called yuyos. So you see these little stands, these guys on the street, you got to try it. And people just pull up there with their cars, kind of like drive through because they're just there on the street, say, hey, fill up my thermal. They'll get you some ice water. And then they've got a bunch of these herbs and they can cook up like a fire combo of herbs, whatever, and put them in your water. So that way, not only is the yerba good, but the water is good too. So let's get on with the video. I'm going to resume when I get on the road. All right, we are rolling. I like this setup a good bit. I have my camera here on the tripod, and I like how you guys can get kind of a view of what we've got outside. In a little bit, what I might do is switch the camera so you guys can see out the windshield as well and just kind of show you guys what I'm seeing. So first thing I want to talk about, which is kind of like a big similarity between the US and Paraguay, you know, I dropped the hint before, is driving, right? The driving culture here. And just the frequent use of cars. Now, what I would do, where I would put Paraguay is like a middle point between the US and Europe. Like if the US is like a 0 in the can you live without a car scale, which it probably is, and then Europe's a 10. By Europe, I mean like, you know, Amsterdam, Paris, you know, Madrid, Berlin, right? Big European cities, London. That's a 10. US, you know, your typical US city, excluding New York, excluding Boston, excluding San Fran. Those are like the only good examples. And Chicago. Excluding those, you know, your LA, Atlanta, Miami, Dallas, Any small mid-sized city in the entire United States, right? You absolutely need a car because the urban planning is very bad and it's an asphalt jungle, right? So here it's kind of like a middle point, but if anything, I might put it like a 4. I don't think it's completely a 5 because it definitely leans closer to the US side, unfortunately. Living in Asuncion, you don't really need a car if you're in a nice area. I recently had a commenter, someone left a comment, said, should I rent a car? Would that be a good idea? If you're watching this, by the way, thank you for leaving that comment. And my response was, if you plan to leave Asuncion a lot, like exactly what I'm doing right now, then yes, rent a car just like I'm doing right now. But I only rented this car for 2 days just to make the trip. If you're gonna live, just be in Asuncion, you know, go to your coffee shops, go to the grocery store, go to the gym, go to restaurants, hang out with people. I wouldn't recommend renting a car long term because at that point, it is going to be pretty expensive. And the cost of Uber will be significantly lower. Like, for example, in my cost of living video, check it out if you want to find out what cost of living is like. My Ubers for the month was $220, and I Ubered a lot. A lot. So just keep that in mind. A car rental is probably going to be at least $500, I would assume. So here, you don't need a car in Asuncion. It's kind of like a nice to have. And it's a nice to have that I will eventually want to have. Part of what I want to do by renting this car, I actually could have ridden with my friends in their car, but I rented my own car just to like kind of feel it out a little bit more. Feel out how's the driving here, which I'm going to talk about in a second. What's it like, you know, just having the freedom to just get behind the wheel and go do your thing without having to worry about calling the Bolt or the Uber. And I like it a lot. It's definitely a nice sense of freedom that you don't have with Uber, but it's not a huge difference. I will buy a car eventually, but I'm not in a huge rush to do it. I'm not going to put myself in a bad financial position to do it. I'm not going to just, you know, make an impulsive purchase. I'm going to take my time, my thorough time with that move, because I do not need it. It is simply luxury. Oh man, I'm struggling to move here. Oh, this person's stopping. Well, I'll just have to stop and be patient. So yeah, that's the thing. Now, one thing I do like about Asuncion is it's the roads aren't like so everywhere that you feel like you're drowning in asphalt, which is definitely not the case in most US cities. Where, yeah, I mean, essentially there's so many roads, so many highways, so many parking lots, oh my God, parking lots, that you are quite literally drowning in asphalt. Here, that's not the case. Now, is parking sometimes a struggle here? Yes. I'm being honked at. Should I go? No, I don't trust this guy. So here, or in Asuncion, you'll notice there's a lot of parking on the street. Pretty much any street you see, there's going to be cars kind of parked on the side. So like if you do own a car, that's something you have to consider as well, right? If you're in if you're in Villa Mora, for example, and you don't have a parking space in your building or on your property itself, and you're having to park on the street, bro, that's not going to be fun. Because there's just not that much parking on the street. It's a pain to deal with. And it's just not convenient at all, but it does make the city a lot more aesthetically pleasing, right? Because in the US, there's so much parking that the soul of the environment becomes completely depleted, because you're just looking at asphalt and litter and oil stains, and yeah, it's wakala, it's gross. So speaking of honking, I'm gonna talk about that in a second, and we'll talk about how people drive. So yeah, that's kind of the similarity, right? I know I'm kind of making this like a similarities and differences on the same point, but I'm probably gonna do that all video. So you need a car. Sorry, you don't need a car, but it is a nice to have. Another example I want to include real fast is Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is like an 8 or a 7 on that scale. I came from Buenos Aires before I was here. Buenos Aires, you certainly don't need a car. It's quite walkable. They've got a good subway system, and it just feels a lot more European. This is not Buenos Aires. This is definitely a lot more roadified. Now, how do people drive? if you're used to like typical, like if you're from like a nice part of the States, like a nice suburb, yeah, you're cooked. Just kidding. You'll figure it out. But yeah, the driving is certainly quite chaotic compared to the States. Compared to the rest of Latin America, this is a cakewalk. Colombia is crazier. Um, Dominican Republic, I've heard, is insane. Even parts of Argentina can be pretty crazy. Mexico, I hear, is crazier. Puerto Rico is probably about on par with this, because Puerto Rico is kind of, Americanized when it comes to its infrastructure. But yeah, I mean, people are weaving and dodging. People are passing on the left. You just have to have a sixth sense. There's not as many like carved out rules for like, you must do this way. A lot of shit is just así nomás. They're just kind of improvising at the intersections and stuff. For example, if you're just in like a residential area and there's just an intersection with no signs, you just got to feel it out. I think technically it's if someone is on your right, like if you're coming and they're on your right, you have the right of way. But if they're on your left, that means you're on their right and they have the right of way. But people just go based off of whoever can go and whoever's got the biggest balls, to just send it and go, right? It's just always like a little unspoken thing that's going on. So you just have to have your eyes open and you have to have a strong sixth sense for it. But on one hand, is that more chaotic? Yes. Are there lots of car accidents here? Yes. However, I personally have not seen one. In my 8 months of being here, I have not seen one. Whether that be out of the window of an Uber, walking around, in a car driving myself. This is my second time renting a car. I have not seen a car accident here. However, they do happen. Apparently, moto accidents are more common here just because there's a lot of motos. But car accidents do happen. But I think part of what my brain wants to tell me, because of my sample size, is therefore there are less accidents and this is a safer place to drive. But I just can't accept that because of how chaotic it is. But there is something to be said for the lack of cookie cutter rules and the lack of structure on the roads that makes people more attentive. In the States, a lot of times people are just kind of going through the motions. They're just sitting there with their hands on the wheel, they're on their phone, they're texting, and their brain, like their subconscious mind, has like a sense of like, okay, I'm supposed to be in this lane, and then the light turns red. They don't even actually look at the light. They just like, they like see it through the top of their eyes, like, oh, they can feel the light's red now, and then they stop, and then it turns green, and they're still on their phone, and they go. So it's like, everything is so organized from a rules perspective that people, I think, are less attentive, and you get a lot of those just like random stupid, like, change the lane when you weren't supposed to, boom. You're on your phone and you're coming to a red light, but you're going faster than you think you are, boom, you rear end the person. And I want to say, I don't have any like proof of this, but I want to say that given the fact that the driving here is more chaotic, people are more incentivized to have their eyes on the roads and to be more attentive and to not be on their phone. And so therefore could be less accidents, or at least the accidents that do happen, don't fall, are more like real accidents, and there's less just like BS mindless fender benders. That's my theory. Just a theory, but I think it's got some weight. Let me know what you think. Yeah, if you just listen to that part all the way through, please like pause for a second and let me know what you think about that, if you have a take on it, especially if you are here in Paraguay. So, last couple points on driving. A lot of motorcycles compared to the States. In the States, there's like no motorcycles. There's only a handful of them. The few people that are on motorcycles, for the most part, wear a lot of gear. And you're just not as used to them as a driver in a car. Here, you have to have your eyes open for motorcycles. Maybe that's another reason, playing into my last point, right, in terms of having your eyes open and having to be more attentive, because you can be changing lanes or turning left, for example. No one's coming ahead of you, but some random dude with a moto and no helmet is coming around you real fast to pass you. Or same thing if you're turning right, he might be on the shoulder, and before you know it, bro, that guy's done. And you don't want to kill someone on a bike. I would hate that. Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to live. So, yeah, like that would give me nightmares. So like you have to have your eyes super open for that stuff. Because the motorcycles are just as reckless, right? Because they're trying to take advantage of their speed boost. You know, the fact that they don't have to deal with the stop and go traffic like we do, they can just weave through the cars and go on the shoulder and go in between. And it's like, technically you're not supposed to do that. Also, technically it's law here. Legally, you have to wear a helmet. Yeah, fucking right. At least 50% of people here don't wear helmets, especially as you start to get further from the city. Like right now, I'm seeing people, someone without a helmet every 15 seconds, right? There was a couple without a helmet and a baby. Yeah, a lot of times it's man driving, woman in the back, baby in the middle, no helmets. So yeah, I mean, fuck it. Like, you know, they're taking that risk. You know, that's the decision they make. So yeah, here it's people are just more like, fuck it, whatever. So you have to be careful with motorcycles. And then if you get a motorcycle, be very careful with potholes. The roads here are not in great shape, and a pothole can end your life. So yeah, that's my comment on driving. To sum it up, is it car dependent? Yes. Is it as car dependent as the States? No. Do you need a car? No. Is it nice to have? Yes. Be careful, be careful, be careful. But you will be fine. Fuck. One more thing I have to talk about. Dang it. I'm trying to transition here. I'm trying not to make this point too long. Manual. I'm driving stick right now. Look at me, Mom. I learned how to drive stick. Aren't you proud? In the States, no one drives stick. You know, if you're from the States, you know this, right? Stick shift is very rare, especially amongst new cars. I mean, you try to go to a Toyota dealership and ask for something manual, they're either going to show you the Supra or they're going to laugh you out of the dealership. What I'm getting at that is it's like sporty cars only, pretty much. So here, stick is a lot more common. It's just like everywhere else in the world. I really don't need to harp on this point too much, but it is a lot more common. And I think it's yet another thing that plays to the theory that I made earlier. When you're having to shift and be a little bit more conscious, you can't have that right hand exclusively on your phone. You know, even if you do want to text, you can, but you got to drop it every once in a while in order to grab the shifter. So maybe that makes you more attentive and that makes you a safer driver. I swear it's true. I swear it's true. And maybe that makes the road safer in general, and maybe that makes this place a safer place to drive because we have more manual cars. Maybe. So stick shift. I recommend learning stick shift in the States before you get here, if you can. I mean, if you even have a stick shift car within 100 miles of your location, which you might not, or just when you get here, find a way to learn it. In my case, a girl I'm seeing taught me. Her car is stick, and we drove around, and I learned how to drive it. And now I'm renting this one without problems. This was the only car available when I went to the rental place last night. So had I not known how to drive stick, I would have been SOL. So that's not, and the stick shift rentals are cheaper. So from a rental car perspective, if you plan to rent cars to go out into the countryside or just to move around, or if you just want to rent some cars to feel it out before you buy one, you definitely should learn stick if you don't know how to drive stick already, because then you'll have a lot more options. And then you won't be like, oh shit, I can't drive stick, can't rent this car. And as much as I think it's stupid, like I really don't think it should matter, girls here will look down on you if you don't know how to drive stick. You know, it's like you lose like 200 to 300 aura down here if you don't know how to drive stick. Whereas in the States, you only lose like 5 aura, like no one cares. But here you definitely lose aura if you don't know how to drive stick. So keep your aura up, learn how to drive stick. Next, finally transitioning. Okay. Another topic that's very American. Guns. Pew, 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 pew. Right? Guns. So what is, you know, how is gun ownership down here? I think that's another thing that's decently similar about Paraguay, but it also has its differences. It's if the US is a 10 in gun ownership, and say, what's a country that hates guns? I don't know, Denmark? Belgium? I don't even know an example. North Korea? Like Kim Jong-un probably doesn't let you own a gun. Yeah, let's just say North Korea is a 0 in terms of can you own a gun, right? Unless you're like a police officer or military. Paraguay is like a 7. think a 7 or an 8. It's pretty good. You do need permits. Like, you can't just go and buy one, but they're relatively easy to get once you get your cedula. It's another one of those reasons to get your cedula when you're down here. It's just like a thing that kind of opens up to you. Yeah, you go there, you do a background check. It's pretty standard stuff from what I've been told. I haven't done it yet personally, but I do plan to. You do your background check, make sure you're not a criminal, and then you can buy a gun. I think they do have some more restrictions in terms of what type of gun you can get, but you can get plenty of firepower to leave someone in the dust if they break into your home, if that's what you want it for. And then you can get hunting rifles and stuff like that, and you can go out into el campo, and you can hunt. Hunting is a lot less restricted from what I hear. You know, the game wardens aren't going to be up your butt down here like they are in the States. But be careful, right? There are rules. Like jaguars, for example. If you kill a jaguar, you're cooked. But there are like capybaras I think you can kill. Birds, you know, you can do a good bit of bird hunting. I'm not super informed on that, but from what I hear, you can, if you have the firepower and you have land to do it on, you can hunt. So, yes, gun rights overall relatively respected. Gun culture is somewhat similar to the US, where people do view it as like, you know, an item of self-protection, as opposed to viewing it as an item of exclusively evilness, of like something that can only be done for used for evil. And yeah, you can have one in your house. And I think if someone breaks into your house and you blast them, I think you're good legally. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's similar to like southern states or like more conservative states in the US, where it's like, by someone being in your home, you know, intrusively, right, breaking into your home, they don't necessarily have to be a threat to your life, and you can use deadly force. Don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure, but if I'm not mistaken, I think that is the case. So those are the similarities there. When it comes to differences, you're not going to run into someone here who has like a whole freaking armory in their garage. You know what I mean? Like that stereotype, like that archetype of like the crazy redneck who has like enough guns to invade a small country in his garage. You're genuinely not going to find that here. Maybe unless you really go into the countryside. I'm sure there's people who do, but you're not going to see as much of that here. It's not as much of it's not a hot button issue politically like it is in the US. People don't really talk about it. Like, you only talk about guns in the context of guns being used. You're not going to hear about it in the context of like, we need to ban them, we need to promote them, we need to use more, use less, etc., etc. But I mean, politics in general, I could do a whole point on that, on political discourse and people caring about politics. That's a whole nother difference between here and Paraguay. You know, TLDR, people don't care about it as much here as they do in the States. The US is very politically divided. So yeah, I know people do ask me about that. What are gun rights like? You know, for the most part, if you want it, you can get it. If you don't want it, you don't need it. You don't have to get it. Shooting ranges are also a thing down here that you can go to recreationally. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think you need your cedula in order to just go and rent one for the day. Rentals are cheap. Rounds are expensive. I'm not sure why that is. If it's like a tax reason, or if there's like, you know, import duties or something like that on rounds, but rounds here are quite expensive. Am I gonna have to stop? Am I good? I don't know. I'm just gonna keep going. It's like a police checkpoint. Well, I guess we're good. People are just going, so I'm just gonna go. Had that guy stop me, you would have seen me. You would have seen me here on the selfie camera recording. So yeah, rounds are expensive from what I hear. Like, if you're gonna go for a shooting day, be ready to have like at least $100 ready to spend, mostly on rounds. Whereas in the States and in like, you know, Russia and countries where guns are very prevalent, rounds tend to be quite cheap because they're manufactured domestically, and they're not expensive to manufacture unless it's a particular type of round. Here, they're expensive from what I've been told. Next, what's another thing that's very American? Obesity. Woo! Obesity. A whole lot less of it. Whole lot less of it. That I will say. Yeah, I mean, bro, the US is ridiculous. The amount of obesity you see there, like, makes your head hurt sometimes. And it's a shame. It really is a shame. It's the ingredients in the foods, it's the lifestyle, it's the culture. People are very sedentary. Um, and yeah, it's a shame. Fitness culture has become more popular, I would say. You know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, shoot, I'm gonna have to stop the video. Well, you know what, I'll do that. I'm gonna stop this video real fast before I keep going on this point. I'm gonna try to flip the camera so you guys can see out the window. All right, we're back. Oh shoot, we got an ambulance right as we turn on the camera. So I got the tripod even higher now, so it's gonna be super like wobbly and unstable, and you might fall. But whatever. What matters is my voice, right? You're probably not watching the video. You probably just have your phone on the counter while you cook eggs or something, which I appreciate. I do the same thing. So, obesity, tragic thing about the U.S. You know, adults are obese. A lot of children are obese, unfortunately. One thing, in terms of a similarity on that point here, being sedentary is quite common. Paraguay is not a place with like an extremely active culture and like a big fitness culture like it is in other parts of Latin America. Example, Brazil, Colombia, right? Places that are more tropical where people show their bodies off more. I think that might be like the reason why, I don't know. But I think that's the psychology of it. Like people wear less clothes, they show their bodies off more, they're in the sun more. So fitness culture by default becomes more important. And just like beauty in general, right? Like Medellin, for example, in Colombia, you know, beauty and a nice body and nice skin, that's just like a lot more prevalent of a thing. Whereas here it's not. Are people beautiful here though? Yes, I think so. As beautiful as Colombians on average? Probably not. But there's some very, very good looking Paraguayans on both sides, men and women. No homo with the men, but of course, yeah, I mean the girls here, like, I got no complaints. So it's not a super active culture, right? When it comes to like everybody's going to the gym, people are walking, like what I mentioned about cars before, right? A lot of people here are they own a car and they just drive around, or they're on their motorcycle, like walking around. You're not going to see that many people walking around Asuncion. There's not that many parks, sadly. That's one like glaring con I have about Asuncion. In hindsight, I should have put that in my 3 things I don't like about Paraguay video, but I didn't. There's not that many parks. I did talk about walkability though, which kind of blends in. But in general, people here are quite sedentary. You know, there's a strong culture of like, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you crack a beer, and you hang out, right? And maybe that's something that's very similar to the US, right? In the US, I mean, that's like the typical, like, you know, typical cutscene of like the movie about the American dad who comes home from work, right? He comes home, he's got a beer gut, you know, he takes off his belt, he unbuckles the button, or undoes the top button of his pants so his gut can hang out, cracks the beer and sits down on the couch and turns on the TV, watches some football, right? Here, you know, it probably doesn't play out exactly like that, but a lot of people, you know, they do that, right? You know, they have a Pisang, which is a big beer brand here, or maybe it's not beer, maybe it's just day-to-day, right? They, you know, they come home, they have some day-to-day, they just hang out, and they kind of just chill until they go to bed. And they do that on repeat, right? Nothing wrong with that, but it's just something to keep in mind, right? People here are quite sedentary. So I think you have an interesting combination of a sedentary culture and relatively clean and good diet. Now, is this like peak diet? No, this is not Costa Rica. This is not, you know, very tropical places with like insanely fresh fruit. This isn't like a 10 out of 10, you know, nutritionist paradise. It's not. But what you do have is a lot less processed ingredients in the States, a lot more whole foods, right? Steak, red meat. I've talked about this ad nauseum already, but you know, the cat is out of the bag, right? Red meat is good for you. Sorry, farmer or doctors from the 90s telling us not to eat red meat. You were wrong. Red meat is healthy, it's nutritious, it's high in protein, it's high in natural fats, it's good for your testosterone levels, it's good for your circadian rhythm, it's good for everything. So people here eat a lot of red meat, so that part's good. Whereas in the States, a lot of those calories that they would have eaten from red meat, and of course people don't think about it on a caloric level, but what they think about is how full are they. A lot of the allocation the stomach allocation that they have, right? A lot of just the food, the things that they stuff into their mouth, instead of it being red meat, which is very satiating, it's simple carbohydrates, right? Bread, burgers, fries, chips, pasta, pizza, right? Carbohydrate, sugar, saturated fats, just processed ingredients, right? Twinkies. I know not everyone eats Twinkies, but like Twinkies and zebra cakes and Oreos and just crap that fills up your stomach if you eat a lot of it, if you eat 800 calories of it, which people do, unfortunately. But it's not nearly as nutritious. Whereas here, the diet consists of a lot more of red meat, like I said, mandioca, right? Yuca, cassava, which is it's a much healthier carbohydrate. That's very common here. There's a saying, you ask someone, sos paraguayo, eres paraguayo? And then instead of saying yes, they'll say, soy más paraguayo que la mandioca, which means I am more Paraguayan than mandioca. Meaning mandioca, which is yuca, cassava, is so Paraguayan that it's become like a saying. And it's quite healthy, all things considered. It's a nice, healthy carbohydrate, right? So if you're coming home and you're cracking a beer, but you're combining that beer with some steak, some asado, some mandioca, some avocado, maybe some fruit, a little bit of rice, some sopa paraguaya, which is like a cornbread type thing. I'm sure you might know what that is already. All in all, it's definitely much healthier than combining that beer with chips and fries and a frozen meal, a frozen mac and cheese and meatloaf meal from your freezer that you got from the freezer section at Kroger. Oh shit, I almost stalled. Damn it, but I didn't stall. We saved it. I almost stalled so bad. So I was in fourth gear and then I came to almost a stop like you guys saw. And then I just continued in fourth gear. I didn't downshift. I forgot to downshift. I was too focused on what I was saying. But we're getting better. I'm still not super good at driving stick. Oh, I just bumped again, but we're getting better. So yeah, it's an interesting combination of, I would say, an equally sedentary population, but a much, much healthier diet. And all in all, what you get is significantly less obesity. Is there still obesity? Yes. Is there more obesity in those other parts of Latin America that I mentioned previously? Yes. But I mean, it's marginal. It's a marginal difference. Whereas in America, it's an exponential difference. So much obesity. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Another reason why I really, unless all else fails, like I do not want to raise my kids in the United States. I absolutely want to raise them in somewhere like here. Because, oh my God, I don't want that food in their stomach. And I don't want them to be around fat friends. Fat friends going over to their friend's house and their parents don't give a crap about nutrition. Hell no, you're not hanging out with them. Whereas here, there's not as much of that. They won't have as many fat friends to hang out with. And if there's just one or two, that's fine. At least you can tell that they're an outlier. Whereas in America, it's like so common that it becomes normal. It becomes the standard in many instances, and that is not good. It should never be the standard. Bro, it literally kills you. I'm not gonna die on this soapbox right now. So that's another thing. Obesity, sedentary lifestyle, nutrition. Now, one other thing here. This is for my more advanced, people who are very into nutrition on a higher level and who really frown on the ingredients in the United States. Processed ingredients are a lot less common, yes. However, unfortunately, there's still a lot of corn and soy that works its way into the food that we eat here in Paraguay, very similar to the United States. For example, the meat, most of it is corn-fed, sadly. Do they put as much crazy, Monsanto in that corn in order to make the cows look like bodybuilders in 8 months? I don't know if it's actually 8 months. By the time they're slaughtered, no, at least to my knowledge. However, corn-fed meat is quite common. Is grass-fed meat a lot more common in the States though? Absolutely. If you go to a nice steakhouse, for the most part, it's going to be grass-fed. They're not going to charge you $60 for a corn-fed ribeye. But at the grocery store, unless it's from a specific brand, if you want to, I can leave a comment and I can tell you which brands I know of are only grass-fed, so you can shop for those. For the most part, it's going to be corn-fed. However, corn-fed steak is better than, you know, your microwave meal in the States, right? So you win, you give some and you win some, you lose some, you give, you take, whatever the saying goes. However the saying goes, dang, I'm losing my English right now. Start speaking Warreny on this video. Oh, we've got a toll coming up here. This will be interesting. Hold on. I'm going to pay this toll real fast just so I don't get too mentally sidetracked. Unless I have a second to stop before I go. Okay, yeah, I do. Another thing, soy. There's a lot of soy production here. In fact, they export a lot of it to China, if I'm not mistaken, and just to the world in general. So soy, there's soy, right? A lot of things that have soy in the United States are still going to have soy down here. There's like soy juice and shit like that too you got to be careful of. So yeah, if you don't want to be a soy boy, you still have to have an eye open here. You can't just live on autopilot and expect things to not have soy because you're not in America anymore. In America anymore, yes, things do have soy. But I'm gonna pay this toll, and I think we're almost done. I'm trying to think of any last thoughts. In the meantime, I'll take advantage of these 2 seconds to say subscribe to the channel. Check out the rest of my videos if you want to learn more about Paraguay and learn more about expat life. See how much I gotta pay here. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cuántos son? 5,000. Gracias. Que tenga buen día. All right. That toll was 5,000 guaranis, about 80 cents. Not bad. What are tolls in the States nowadays? Like $2.50? I hear tolls in New York are like $4 or $5 now, right? Is that true? Man, I always forget to go into third gear. Still learning. So I think that's pretty much it. Those are the main 3 topics I want to talk about because those 3 topics are pretty American, right? Cars, guns, and fat people. Woo! And I don't want this video to be too long, but I think this was a great video. I think for those of you who stay and listen to this video all the way through, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And it will be pretty informative for those of you who want, you know, a more deeper understanding for what life in Paraguay here is truly like, which is the whole purpose of this channel. I hope you can tell I try to go deep. I try to really break things down in a way that's very digestible and applicable to the life that you're going to live. You know, especially if you're trying to come down here and just become a better person, right? That's my goal with this move. I hope that's your goal as well. Come down here, live a better life, become a better person, develop healthier habits, make better friends. You know, focus on our business, focus on our body, focus on our mind, live freely, live with less stress, more dopamine, less cortisol. Combine those 2 and you get a lot more serotonin. Cheers to that. I might see you guys later on, record a video here at this little mountain cabin that we're renting. But in the meantime, thank you for staying tuned and hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Safe travels.